Today, as we celebrate Magnolias, we will be talking with our gardeners, Kim and Leslie, who have lots of great information to share with us about these two Magnolias, Sweetbay and Star Magnolia, growing in our Zone 7 gardens. Before our conversation with Kim and Leslie, we will have our guest gardener, Kathleen, share with us how to care for yarrow, an attractive perennial for your herb or flower cottage garden. Garden zones were developed by the USDA to help growers understand which plants are most likely to thrive at a particular minimum temperature. Here you can see this USDA plant hardiness map is based on the average minimum winter temperature for a zone, which helps gardeners to select plants that will most likely thrive in their zone. Zone 7 is shown in light green and includes our region of Virginia. So it's up around here. And then the arrow indicates the temperature. Many factors within a zone can influence the average minimum temperature, including elevation, proximity of large bodies of water, and warming effects of the cities. Because of these variations in temperature within a zone, it's important to consider your growing season, which is determined by the first and last average frost dates. You can see for Zone 7, the first and last, and the first and the last for Zone 7 and 7B. This map, the Virginia Hardiness Zone map from the VCE, more precisely depicts the planting times that will promote good growth of plants. Again, note the last spring frost dates and the first fall frost dates for Zone 7. Most of Fairfax County, which is located right here, is in Zone 7A. Here, 7A goes from here all the way down to here, except the small portion adjacent to the Potomac River, which is located in Zone 7B. So here's 7B right here. To find exactly when you should plant in Zone 7, it is important to look at your growing season, which can be determined from this map. Here in Zone 7, we have milder winters without the extremes of cold in the zones to the north of us and the extremes of the heat, the zones to the south, placing our gardens in a transition zone between these two extremes. Before we turn to our main presentation on Magnolias, with Kim and Leslie, our guest gardener, Kathleen, is going to share with us some information about yarrow, a lovely perennial that can be grown in a naturalized area or rock garden. Plant them now for next year's blooms. Over to you, Kathleen. Kathleen.
Thank you, Linda.
Oh,
it's a pleasure to be here. And today I'm going to be talking about Accolea millefolium. Common name is yarrow. This is a native herbaceous perennial that grows wild throughout the US. The species plants are actually white. So here I'm showing you some of the cultivars. The flowers are rarely pink on the species plant. Cultivars definitely extend the range of colors, including reds, yellows, pinks, and lavenders. And the cultivars and hybrids generally have stronger stems, upright habits, and larger flowers than the species plant.
Kathleen, could you share with us some growing characteristics of yarrow?
Certainly. As I mentioned, yarrow is a native perennial. They have ferny, deeply dissected leaves, which are aromatic and have a spicy scent. The typical height and spread is about 1.5 to 2 feet, both tall and wide. Accolea millefolium, or common yarrow, grows by rhizomes that are often mat forming, and the stems may need staking. Yarrow plant stems may flop over, especially in hot, humid climates, so it's recommended to choose a location where it will be protected from wind. This plant prefers full sun, and it grows best in lean, well-drained soil with dry to medium moisture. So here in Northern Virginia, you will want to amend your clay soils to improve drainage and avoid overwatering these plants. Plants do well in average garden soils and tolerate poor soils as long as drainage is good. The flowers are actually compound corums. This is similar to an umbel inflorescence. So imagine a miniature bouquet and all of the flowers form a flat plane at the top of the bouquet. This bouquet describes the appearance of a compound yarrow flower. And Linda, I hear that you have a gardening friend that gave you some pink yarrow.
I do indeed. So my friend gave me this pink yarrow about 4 years ago, and I don't know what variety it is. And it has, like you described, the fern-like delicate foliage. I planted it in my native garden and pollinating garden. And it had, from the one plant that I've received, it's spread throughout the whole garden. And it is in an area that gets full sun and some part shade in the afternoon. And so it blooms deep pink in the spring, and then it fades to a light pink. And then I cut the stems back. And now here in October, I have new baby plants that are coming up through my mulch, and they've started to rebloom. And you can see that flower actually on Kathleen's reference slide. So we'll point that out when we get to her reference slide. And then last fall, I thought, I'm gonna plant a new variety. So I planted Moonshine, which is a green silvery foliage. And I put that in my cutting garden, and it's taller than the pink variety, and it has not yet reseeded itself like the pink did. And it's more woody than ferny, and it has a great aromatic scent, and it makes a great dried flower arrangement. So Kathleen, would yarrow be a good choice for a cutting garden, as I mentioned?
Yes, absolutely. The flowers make good cut flowers for a fresh bouquet, and they also dry well, retaining their scent. And before we leave this slide, I just want to mention that the one in the upper left, the yellow flower, that's a close-up so you can get an idea what a corum flower looks like.
Yeah, that's great. I like those individual little flowers, tiny little flowers. And then I have an arrangement here of some Coronation Gold plate that I got from my mom's garden. I don't know if you can see that or not. And so they're mixed in with, it's a lunaria, which is a common name is money flower or silver dollar flower. And so you simply just cut them and then hang them upside down to dry them. Like you can put them in like a closet, something like that, that's not damp and just dry.
That's great. I think we're ready for the next slide, please.
Are you done with this slide?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. The North Carolina Cooperative Extension notes that yarrow is resistant to all of the following: to deer, to drought, dry soil, heat, humidity, pollution, even salt. Deer resistance is especially good news to us who garden in Northern Virginia. Yarrow also attracts butterflies and pollinators. California Native Plant Society identifies 5 butterflies that yarrow is the host plant for. Yarrow can be used.
Kathleen, is this the native version, the white version?
Yes, it is indeed. This one is from the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, and I think that's a red admiral butterfly that's landed on it.
Very pretty.
Mm-hmm. Yarrow can be planted in sunny places, cottage gardens, native plant gardens, meadows, naturalized areas. Plantings can also be periodically mowed. And yarrow does have some medicinal uses. Numerous native tribes in North America used yarrow for a variety of ailments. They crushed the plant, the crushed plant was applied to wounds and burns. The dried leaves were used as a tea to soothe colds, fever, and headache. And Lewis and Clark were acquainted with yarrow. They collected it during their expedition in 1806 in Idaho. While the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service notes yarrow was used for medicinal purposes by Native Americans, they also caution that it has a low poison rating. It can cause contact dermatitis and the following symptoms or reactions: increased urination, vomiting, diarrhea, depression, anorexia, hypersalivation. So I do caution you to research well before you consider using this plant. Ingesting it, that is.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Common yarrow has many common names. A few of these are milfoil, thousand leaf, soldier's woundwort, and bloodwort. And now I'd like to give just a little bit of history about the name. Common yarrow, Achillea millefolium, was called Achillea by the ancient Greeks. It refers to the Achilles, the one who stormed Troy about 1200 BC. According to legend, the physician Chiron taught Achilles the benefits of this plant, and then the warrior used yarrow to staunch the wounds of his compatriots during the siege of Troy. Since the time of Achilles and the Trojan War more than 3,000 years ago, yarrow has been used to heal wounds and cure other ailments. Yarrow's legendary curative powers do indeed have a basis in chemical fact. And this is actually an abstract that I lifted from Cambridge University Press. They have an online access to journals that they publish. And this is from Weed Technology in June 1990. So remembering Achilles may indeed help you remember the botanical name, Achillea millefolium.
That's a great tidbit. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here's Kathleen's references. Are there any references that you would like to point out to the folks online?
As always, Missouri Botanical Garden has an amazing plant finder tool on their website, which gives you really great information about native plants and other plants, not just natives. Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, they cover natives.
All right, and the photo to the right is the photo of the pink unidentified yarrow that I have in my yard. And the one on Kathleen's introduction, which was back here on the left, is the moonshine that I have. That's not aggressive like the pink version. Okay, all right. Kathleen, there's so many varieties of yarrow to pick from to provide an attractive colors for your butterfly or pollinating garden. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Kim. Thank you for starting our conversation on magnolias. What's the preferred growing conditions for this native magnolia?
Yes, hi, thanks for having me today. So it was very nice to research this wonderful tree that's native to our area. It grows pretty high, can be 10 to 35 feet high, but it's a semi-evergreen in our area, meaning here in this area, it won't lose all of its leaves. If you go down further south, it seems like that it will keep its leaves, will stay evergreen all year. You'll see on the leaves, there's an underside that is a silver color that is very typical of the Magnolia family. And it loves like moist soils. It flourishes around the stream banks where there would be more moisture, and it prefers some acid in the soil. You would also find near the swamp lands or the stream. The tree grows in part shade and part sun, but can also take full sun. The tree has a hardiness zone, means it can grow in zones 5 through 10A, and it is perfect for our area, which is, in the zone 7.
All right, terrific. Kim, I read that the Sweetbay flowers are very fragrant with a sweet lemony scent. Is that true?
It is. This tree actually has a lot of scents going on. The flowers that come out in late spring after the danger of the first frost have a very lemon scent to them. The flowers are also beautiful. They're smaller than your typical magnolias you'd see. They're 2 to 3 inches in size. They have a waxy flower like your typical magnolia, and they continue to flower during the summer. Also with this tree, not only do the leaves, the flowers have a nice scent, but actually parts of the tree do too. The twigs and the bark of the magnolia have kind of a spicy, I guess when they're crushed, there's a spicy smell to the leaves, along with the flower having that beautiful lemon scent. And it's funny because back, the native tribes, again, we're back to some like history here, they used the leaves, twigs, and bark of the magnolia to treat colds, chills, and to warm the blood. Early colonists referred to this magnolia tree as the beaver tree because back in the day, the tree's fragrant roots they used to bait to trap the beavers. It's one of the most ancient trees still in existence. The magnolia flowers do not have true petals and sepals like mostly developed trees and species, but instead they attract all the pollinating beetles and insects with their fragrant, sugary secretions from the actual flowers. So a lot of benefits to this tree and a lot of fragrance going on with not only the leaves and the flowers themselves, but the twig and the bark.
They're gorgeous. And I've actually gathered some of their seed pods and then sprayed them with gold and used those for decoration, like at Christmas time. So that's another potential use of parts of the plant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have beautiful, even the leaves themselves to decorate. And I'm a big flower arranger, so I use those too. And the pods themselves, they're great.
Yeah, they're stunning. Does the Sweetbay magnolia provide any wildlife benefits?
Lots of wildlife benefits. This is a native tree in our area. It is a larval host plant. And most people will say, well, what are the host plants? What does that mean? This is successful to a butterfly garden, to have a butterfly garden in your yard or in your flower beds. They're required by a caterpillar for growth and development. So by planting a host plant or this tree in your garden, you're offering a promise of food for the next generation, and this will attract more butterflies than you ever thought were possible. It's the host plant for the spice bush swallowtail, which has two broods from April to October. It's also the host plant for the eastern tiger swallowtail, and they have 3 flights in our north region from months of March to September. This tree will also attract butterflies, hummingbirds, pollinators, small mammals, and lots of songbirds. And as I was doing more research, I found out that it's the favorite tree of some supsuckers. And as you'll see here, it has a beautiful berry in the winter and fall, and it provides winter and great coverage in the winter for all these animals and mammals and insects.
That's awesome. Those berries are gorgeous. Kim, could you share with us some landscape uses?
Sure. This tree has a great structure. It has this great vertical definition, and it can be both flood and drought tolerant. It can come in a tree form or a shrub form, I guess, depending on how it grows, meaning, if some of the trunks lay closer to the ground, it could look more like a shrub. Let's see, it needs very little pruning since it developed such a strong structure. And here you'll see they've got it planted up right next to a building. So it's a great tree for your front yard as a specimen tree, but it also is great for next to buildings or narrow alleyways, since it doesn't have this huge canopy at the top. It doesn't take up a lot of space. So it would be perfect for anywhere around here, urban areas, or, in the city, maybe streets.
And I guess since it doesn't have a big canopy, then you could plant like perennials or something like that underneath of it.
You could, definitely.
And are there some cultivars that you'd like to talk to us about?
So there are, and there are some cultivars that, grow smaller than the one you see here, the Virginiana one. There's the Henry Hicks that only grows to about 25 feet tall. And then there's this one called Jim Wilson that has slightly larger flowers, and then the Moon Glow, and then a dwarf one that would tolerate more cold temperatures called Tinsel.
All right, terrific. So here's Kim's references. Kim, are there any references that you'd like to point out to the folks online?
Well, again, another fellow Master Gardener, Ray, wrote a great article on our fairfaxgardening.org website. So that just tells a little bit of description about this tree. I think the one I found the most helpful was the U.S. Forest one. You'll see down there, Magnolia, Virginia. Yes, that one right there. That is University of Florida Institute of Food and Agriculture Sciences. And what that site does is it tracks you down to 680 different tree fact sheets.
Oh my
and they're
gosh.
very simple and easy to read. It's all black and white. They will print out as a PDF and 2 sheets. And it's very simple. It tells you introduction about the tree, the information, the description, the foliage, the flower, the culture, the use and management. And it's just a very simple, easy way to, research a tree before you plant it and get direct, scientific answers from the U.S. Forest Service. So I highly recommend that one.
All right, thank you for your suggestions and recommendations. So what a gorgeous tree. It's deer resistant, provides benefits to a wide variety of wildlife. It smells good. What's not to like about it? All right, so thank you so much, Kim, for sharing the characteristics and growing conditions for this native tree, Sweetbay Magnolia. Leslie, welcome to our conversation, and thank you for joining us as we continue our discussion on magnolias. And you're going to showcase the star magnolia. Over to you.
Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about the star magnolia, and it is a lovely tree that blooms just when you think that winter is never going to be over. Every early spring, star-shaped flowers will light up your landscape and help your mood. It's a beautiful tree for even small yards, since it's a slow grower and it doesn't get terribly big, so it won't overwhelm your landscape. It has 4-season interest with fuzzy plump buds in the winter, showy flowers in the early spring, and then it grows these long green leaves that turn a bright gold in the fall.
It does sound lovely. Excuse me. What a great small tree to plant with that 4-season appeal. Leslie, could you tell us about the deciduous variety of magnolia? This is over to you.
Yes, it's a small deciduous tree or shrub. It actually comes as a shrub, but it can be pruned into a tree form. It's multi-branched with up to 24 feet tall and about 10 to 15 feet wide. And it is the earliest magnolia to bloom, and it's either, it starts to bloom late February into early March with these showy pink and or light pink to white flowers that pop out before the leaves come out on the trees. And then the buds, and again, the buds in the fall or in winter are these big fat furry things that look like they need a haircut.
I think the pink version maybe is on the left and there's a white version on the right here.
Mm-hmm.
So Leslie, could you describe the fruits and the leaves of the star magnolia?
Sure, the leaves are deciduous. They're simple, alternate, elliptical leaves, and they're lighter on the bottom with little fine hairs on the bottom of the leaves. And the fruit is this interesting knobby pink fruit that it's like a capsule that most of them fall to the ground, but if they remain on the tree, then they burst open into these bright orange seed pods that the animals will eat.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Leslie, what beautiful flowers with so many blooms.
Yes, there's gigantic white blooms. They have 12 to 18 strap-like tepals, which is a combination of sepals and petals. I guess it's a kind of a ancient form of a flower. And then different cultivars have different number of these petals. And they last for 10 to 20 days. They don't open all at the same time. So you have a long period where you get these beautiful flowers. And that's why they recommend you plant them against an evergreen hedge or a brick wall, so it stands out from the background.
Sounds lovely. You have a long blooming time.
Mm-hmm.
So Leslie, what's the preferred growing conditions for the star magnolia?
Well, they need full sun, but will tolerate partial shade. They prefer organically rich, acidic to neutral soils. It needs to be well-drained soils, but will tolerate clay. So make sure you mix in a lot of compost before you plant in this area. It's heat tolerant, but it does need some moisture in the summer. And the flowers can be kind of fragile, though they're kind of, if there's a lot of heavy frost in the late winter, it could kill off the flowers. So you do want to protect them against wind if you can, like against a wall or a hedge, and avoid your southern exposures since your buds may open early and then the flowers can be damaged by the frost. So you can use it as a single specimen, or you can use it as a hedge if you really want to light up the yard.
This photo on the left kind of looks like a large pussy willow.
Yeah, they do. They resemble a pussy willow.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. So Leslie, how do you care? What are the care and growing conditions of this non-native?
Well, yeah, it is from Japan, from an island of Honshu, and it was introduced to the US in the 1860s. And it grows in a wide variety from 4A to 8A. And again, it's the smallest magnolia. You need to mulch it well to maintain the moisture because it doesn't like to be dried out too much. It requires little fertilizer once it's established. And unless you want to prune it into a tree shape, it doesn't really take much pruning at all to maintain it. What you'll do is just take the bottom branches up slowly to make it a tree shape. And make sure you prune it after flowering. So like right after flowering, like your azaleas and stuff, so you don't lose your buds for the next year.
Thank you. They're beautiful. Leslie, are there any insect pests or disease issues that we should be aware of when growing and caring for star magnolia?
They're actually pretty trouble-free. They are soft-wooded, so you have to be careful if there's a heavy snow or ice. Make sure you brush it off, the heavy snow, so the wood doesn't break off, the branches don't break off. Again, the blossoms are susceptible to the frost or wind, so you do want to protect them with a hedge or a wall, or plant it next to a building. They don't have very many insect pests. Magnolia scale is possible, but it's not terribly common. And I guess it causes the scale causes the plants to have these shiny, sticky leaves if you have it. And the flowers are attractive to pollinators, and the fruit is edible to birds and squirrels.
Great information. Leslie, what are some examples, cultivar examples?
The Centennial is many-petaled, white with a slight tinge of pink, and that one grows about 25 feet tall. The Jane Platt has the light pink flower, and it's about 10 to 20 feet tall. Pink Stardust is numerous large fragrant flowers on a pyramidal 12-foot tree. The Royal Star is probably your most common, and it has abundant snow white flowers with 25 to 30 petals. That grows 10 to 12 feet tall. And then your water lily is your pink buds that open to a light colored flower.
Wow, 25 to 30 petals must be gorgeous.
Yeah.
So here's Leslie's references. And Leslie, are there any references that you'd like to point out to the folks online?
Actually, the University of Wisconsin had a really good article on the star magnolia.
Very great source.
Mm-hmm. And then we also have the Fairfax County Master Gardener, the Fairfax Gardening one by Pat Dickey. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Kim and Leslie, for all this great information on these native and non-native varieties of magnolias. Now let's turn to questions submitted during registration. Okay, so is Belinda online today?
No, Belinda has not joined us.
Okay, I was going to say she should unmute herself. So this is our only question for today, and Belinda asked, does it, so I'm assuming she meant magnolia, have a strong fragrance? And both the Sweetbay and the star magnolia have strong fragrances. The Sweetbay flowers are fragrant with a sweet lemony scent, and it has aromatic spicy leaves and twigs. The star magnolia, the most fragrant variety, is the Centennial, the one that Leslie just mentioned. That's the pink variety. And the scent is in the tepals, which is a combination of the sepals and the petals. And the thick petals contain a repository of chemical scent compounds, which is a citrus scented linoleal. Do you have anything more to comment on this response to this answer for Belinda, either Kim or Leslie? Anything more to add?
I don't think that the star magnolia is known for really, like some magnolias you can walk by and you can smell them, you know, like they're super fragrant. I think these are just lightly fragrant.
Okay, all right.
You know, but they do recommend, you know, if you want to smell it, like stick it next to a patio. That's a really good spot for it, so you can smell them easily.
So you can walk by and smell
Yeah.
it, huh? Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you for that update on that.